Let's do this. How's it going, man? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hold on. I'm just making sure my headset. Still hear me well?
Yep.
How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. How about yourself?
Just before I got into this debate, I realized that one of the resident judges just posted a comment. The fourth judgment came in for your debate with Terrence. Have you had a chance to see it? Because I haven't yet, so I don't know who won.
No, but it can wait.
Okay, cool. Well, hey, first of all, great talking to you finally. And it's kind of funny for us, Georgia and I, to watch you guys debate all this time, and then get on an actual discussion or a debate with you. It always feels weird, but it's been a long time coming, I guess.
It has. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is. And I have to say, like, specifically with this topic, let me just go right off the bat and tell you, like, I don't know much about Alex Jones, especially like what are the things that he's credible on or truthful. So this is more of a learning discussion for me, where I'm hoping that somebody can actually shed some light on the good stuff that he could or might be talking about. Is it 2-2? Okay, 1 second. I think George is giving me. No, he hasn't. I think it's 2-2. Okay, so I think it's 2-2. George is going to give us the result in a second. Sorry to go off topic, but yeah, I'm really just hoping for somebody to tell me a little bit about Alex Jones on why he's the truth, or any way, shape, or form close to being a credible source of the truth, because the stuff that I keep on seeing sheds more light on a conspiracy theorist rather than any objective facts. And so I have a few examples here that I just picked up, other than the things that I've stumbled upon the last months or years even. So I wanted to also discuss these with you, but I'm getting some weird friction sound. Is that me or you?
It might be me.
Are you hearing it as well, or is it just on my side? Okay, it's gone now. It's gone now. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, let me just sort of just start off with a couple of the things that I came across about some of the weird things that he says. Now, I'm sure that Alex Jones every now and then does talk about some facts, but my issue with him is that he mixes a lot of the correct things that he talks about with flat out like bullshit. So for example, I don't know if you've come across this particular piece of information, but he claimed that the US government manipulates the weather, uses weather weapons in order to manipulate the weather for a specific objective. So like something of that sort, like, I'd like to maybe get the discussion started with this piece of information, and maybe tell me what you think about that piece of information, but also tell me in general, where do you stand on Alex Jones before we get started?
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna start off with my stance on Alex Jones. So for the most part, I find Alex Jones is a purveyor of nothing. But the reason why I'm defending him in this instance is, one, the credibility statement. So I don't think anyone can be credible enough or sufficient enough with credibility to make a statement on anything. It's kind of hard for me to watch CNN or Fox News or any other news organization where they're talking about a multiplicity of issues, right? So it's hard for me to look at a journalist who's stating this about an economy. As an economist, I think, well, you're absolutely wrong. You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no credibility in that statement. Mm-hmm. So my statement here is that Alex Jones may not have credibility, but he has no less credibility than other journalists. Now, to the point. So within every conspiracy theory, there is some level of truth involved. Now, the great thing about conspiracy theories is that they spread faster than truth. And they spread faster than non-truths, I guess you could say. So if I come up with a crazy conspiracy theory, it will spread quick enough that multiple people will hear it. Now, let's say out of 100 people that hear it, 90 people go, what the hell is wrong with you? And they fact check and they learn something. Now, that audience wouldn't have been reached at that level or at that speed without there being some type of controversy to roll up into it. So again, that's my second contention as to why I support Alex Jones. My third point is that as crazy as he is, he even admits he plays a character. He said, this is a character. He said, I don't actually believe any of this stuff, but I make millions of dollars every year to act like an absolute ass. and I pander these stupid stories that some people eat up and some people believe, and I get paid for it. So the capitalist in me just goes, you know what? Good job, Alex Jones.
Mhm.
You're ridiculous, but I guess I can't really disagree with what you do.
I have to say, sorry, you can continue before I comment, because I think I agree with your second and your third contention on the capitalist aspect of it is intelligence and how he makes money from pure bullshit or showmanship, whatever you want to call it. And also the second contention, I actually also agree with you. I think that's it's good for the curious minds out there like you who are willing to take some of the conspiracy theories and then investigate it and then find out the truth. So in a way that creates a positive outcome. Although unfortunately a lot of the other people, or a million plus people that actually do follow him and take what he says to be true, just take that at face value, and that's where it starts to become a bit dangerous, because not everybody actually is curious enough to go and look into this stuff. They just believe it flat out right because of confirmation bias and all that stuff. And so while I do agree with you with the second and your third contention, the second being he creates a positive outcome for some people who actually go research his stuff, and the third one being that he's a smart capitalist, both of these things are true, but they're not the statement at hand, which is his credibility stuff, right? So when it comes to his credibility, that is still highly questionable. And when we compare that credibility, regardless of what a positive outcome it creates for some people, but that credibility, especially when compared to CNN or Fox News, I think there's a false equivalence there. Because when you watch an economist on CNN looking at some historical facts and information and coming up with his or her own opinion on where the economy is heading, or on even when it comes to global warming or anything like that, there's a spectrum of subjectivity that is allowed, that is based on some rationale that may or may not be accurate, but there is a rationale provided there that fits into a certain spectrum of subjectivity and also credibility. And then people use some logical reasoning and discussions in order to support or negate those ideas. But when he goes out and talks about things like satanic cults, or the weather being manipulated by the government, or even denying flat-out massacres, like I just saw here that on Megyn Kelly, and we learned that from the Megyn Kelly interview, where he basically flat-out denied the Sandy Hook massacre, which maybe it was fair of him to sort of play the devil's advocate at first, but he was even skeptical after he saw the post-incident reporting. So he starts to go on a different category of bullshit, right? And I feel like people should always be responsible to research their own stuff and apply their own reasoning eventually. But when you are factually denying things or creating information altogether based out of nothing, it starts to go outside the realm of CNN and Fox News a little bit. It starts to become category like batshit crazy bullshit versus my own perception of the economy or the global warming or whatever it is. Don't you think that's true?
So, you stated about the credibility of them bringing on an economist at Fox News and CNN and things of that nature. But here's the thing. Alex Jones is not without people that he brings in. Peter Schiff typically shows up to his show. Now, I disagree with Peter Schiff's brand of economics, but Peter Schiff does show up to his show. So he does bring a lot of verifiable actors to the show to talk about his viewpoint. And he does go on to other shows, like he's been on the Young Turks, where he has discussed things with them. So I can't say that it's absolutely completely biased on his part. Now, some of his research methods may be in question, but all of his research he does post and he does give links to. Now, whether or not you can conclude the same thing as him from his research is another matter. But he does a pretty good job of getting his research out there and trying to back up his claims. Now, typically it's with selective research from a limited conspiracy media pool and ramblings from like a like-minded circle. And it could mean nothing, but it's not without some level of research. It's not without some level of verification. It's not without some level of logic and reasoning to it. So here's a list of things that he thinks that we can all kind of jump in and say, well, you're just ridiculous, right? So you said the Sandy Hook thing, right? There's one thing to be the devil's advocate, and there's one thing to want verifiable evidence and be a skeptic of, but it's like, how far into skepticism do we get to irrationality, right? Some of those things that he talks about they're out there, right? So he's had some crazy things like the Satanist tribes or the people of Nibiru and pedogate and things of that nature that have come in. But as of the past 2 years, he's moved more towards things of like big pharma, vaccine denialism, GMOs, Federal Reserve, global warming, the gay agenda, end times, things that aren't too far from the discussions we have here at callout.com.
Yeah, I agree, and I actually think that this is the dangerous part. Sorry to cut you off, but this is important. That when he throws in 8 somewhat factual, at the very least debatable discussions, and then between every 7 or 8 of those, he mixes it in with some crazy, batshit crazy conspiracy theory, the audience no longer is able to distinguish, especially if that audience doesn't have the means and the education that you have or that I have, that or most people have, that to go actually research things that sound a bit too crazy, and they'll just take everything that is true, because majority of it is actually debatable and true, and that's where it starts to become crazy. Had he been just a flat-out conspiracy theorist, I don't think he would have had the crowd he has, because a lot of the people can go and back up his claims with some correct things, like you just mentioned, and that's where it starts to become dangerous. But sorry, go back to your point. You were trying to talk about some of the good stuff he was doing.
It's not necessarily that it's good stuff he's doing, but it's the discussions he has. The discussion he has is not far off from the typical topics we have here.
Yeah.
Now, granted, some of the things he has, and he doesn't do them as much anymore, so he's moved towards trying to get just like a biased media outlet more so than the wild conspiracy theories. So he dropped some of the FEMA stances. He's dropped some of his more wild aliens coming through ninth dimension and molesting children ideas. But
my point is actually, yeah.
But the thing is like, how much utility do we gain from that in comparison to his credibility? So again, we go back to the credibility statement, because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I cannot find him to be uncredible as a source, considering that the news is built in with a bias itself. Whether it's CNN or Fox or whatever, all of them have this bias built in. So there's no reason to assume that he has any less credibility than someone at Fox News or CNN.
Well, so my specifically on that, because I think that's the great comparison there, right? I've seen enough, stuff on CNN and Fox News that made me think this is just ridiculous. This is exaggeration. This is, hyperbole in every sense of the word. But even with the research that's provided, there is some exaggerated reasoning that could be true. Now, when it comes to these UFOs, for example, molesting children, or the government manipulating the weather, right? And his research, from what I shared the link on the comments section on that. It's not really research. It's more like we had floods in Texas like 15 years ago, killed 30-something people in one night. Turned out it was the Air Force. So I don't know how much research is there. There are presumptuous claims being made that could, in some worlds, be true, right? And this is where I feel like I don't think I've ever come across any reporting by Fox News or CNN that goes that far. They might exaggerate some facts. They might even read between the lines a little inaccurately. But to factually create statements, conclusions. Well, conclusions is also something that I've seen CNN and Fox News create, but this is a factually made-up incident, and I don't think Fox or CNN have actually come up as far as creating a made-up incident. Even when CNN or Fox News would report on something like a 911 being an inside job, which is one of the conspiracies of Alex Jones, they position it as a conspiracy theory. They position it as a question mark that is to be discussed, or that some people are shedding light on. Even the Pizzagate thing made it to national news at one point, which is one of Alex Jones' conspiracy theories. But even when they report it as a possible question mark that some people on the internet are looking into. They don't report it as actual news. And that's where I start to think that in those specific instances, Alex Jones has lost credibility because he's willing to call some things news and mix it with other actually real news. And so the whole thing becomes just one plethora of information coming from this guy. And that's when, credibility becomes questions, because if you don't want your credibility to be questioned, you need to discuss some things that are not entirely proven with a question mark. That maintains your credibility. And you might even want to sort of push a certain bias by, saying maybe this question mark is true, maybe it's not, but then try to advocate that it could be true. But at least putting a question mark out there, like that's kind of how Fox News does it, or CNN, maintains your credibility. You're not calling it news yet, whereas he flat out goes and calls it news until somebody calls him out on it. And then if you look at Megyn Kelly's interview, she actually challenges him on some of those things, like specifically the Sandy Hook massacre. And he looks a bit like flustered when he's asked about it. He looks like he's almost guilty of it. Now, I know she may have edited some things in and out, but he doesn't look like somebody who's very comfortable with his reporting in retrospect, in hindsight. And so for me, that interview, I mean, you can love her or hate her. Megyn Kelly's done a lot of things in her career, but that definitely took some of the things that he's done, shed light on it, and put him in the corner about having to defend it. And he didn't do a very good job at defending those particular few cases that are flat out, red on the bullshit meter. And that's why I find it's not really comparable to CNN and Fox News, because they never go out and report full-on fake news and call it news. And even if they ever did, they would immediately come back pulling out that news and saying that was false reporting. Unlike what he's done with the false reporting, where he might have taken either too long or waited for too many people to call him out on it. And even then, he sometimes stood by his claims. So this is where I find the distinction to be quite clear between him and national news.
Okay, so I want to talk about that last part, right? So there's a great debate. It was between William Lane Craig and a physicist, Sean Carroll, right? So the second contention of William Lane Craig was about the Boltzmann brains, right? In a universe, if a universe is created, how the brains work, blah, 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 blah. William Lane Craig did not have that much information on it, but William Lane Craig did his best to try to refute the contention, right? And at the end of the day, Sean Carroll knew vastly more about it and made William Lane Craig look very bad. Excuse me. And I noticed in debates, people said, well, why doesn't William Lane Craig just admit that he's wrong on that? Mm-hmm. This is something I don't do in debates. When I'm debating something, whether I believe in it or not, I'm not going to admit defeat to any single contention. Even if it's absolutely correct, I will not go, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Because the foundation of the debate and the foundation of the discussion is that I'm right. And so that's what Alex Jones does, right? So maybe in a discussion, I might be a little bit more lenient on what I believe and what I don't believe. But in a debate, I will not admit I'm wrong unless you can have me like verifiable evidence on why I'm wrong. Because here's the thing, it's a debate. I'm not trying to be absolutely correct. I'm not trying to be absolutely right. I'm trying to win the debate at the end of the day. And if I go, yeah, he's right, I don't know what I'm talking about, I don't have a reason to continue the debate. I've already lost.
So you think that he sometimes loses the debate right then and there, realizes that he lost it, but just continues down the path that he started because that's just the objective of what he's doing? Is that sort of?
Yeah.
Okay, so on that, I have two things to say. I think for a different debate topic, which I'd love to debate with you, is whether people should admit they're wrong or not in a debate. And I have 2 points of view on that to make. And we can either have it separately or we can have it in this discussion right now. But generally, when it comes to somebody like Alex Jones and the times he's been cornered, and he has two options, right? He either admits he's wrong because there's somebody there who's really shed light on a lot of bullshit, and he has two options. He either admits he's wrong and loses the debate, or stays stubborn to his obviously wrong point and tries not to lose a debate, although he's clearly lost it in the eyes of everybody else watching. So he might as well maintain his credibility and accept defeat, because that's a more, well, at least he was able to see it too. But to be obviously losing a debate and still not admit loss and keep on saying, well, I'm going to just push down the path, means that you're going to be losing the debate in the eyes of everybody else watching, and you're going to be like almost living on a different planet because you don't want to admit that you lost the debate. And this is two losses rather than one. I mean, no? Or?
Well, here's the thing. So, again, would Alex Jones want to lose credibility in the majority's eyes or lose credibility in his fan base's eyes? So if he admitted defeat, he would lose credibility to the people who give him money. He might gain credibility to the outside, I guess you could say, that outside persons, but he would lose credibility in the people who watch his show, who buy his products. And that's where he wants to base his credibility on. is not necessarily what the majority of people think, but the credibility of people who pay his bills.
To hear what he has to say and to hear the things that he says, regardless if they're actually true or not.
Exactly. So if he lost his credibility the first way, sure, he would be more credible as a person from other interests. But he would probably lose his credibility within his own subgroup, and that would cost him actual money.
Very good. So we're getting to a very interesting point here. So credibility of the world watching him, which is checking his credibility versus a checklist of, basic human common sense. And then there's the credibility of the people watching him and paying him money who care less about common sense and actual credibility, the way it's defined, and more about confirmation bias. And because it sounds like we agree that those who are paying him money care less about truth and more about confirmation bias, which defies credibility by definition, right? Because it's not true, but it's what we want to hear. So I don't care if he's credible, he's just comfortable to listen to.
Right. And I'd also like to make the statement that the majority of people who watch him are not conspiracy theorists. They just enjoy watching the show because it's sometimes just so outrageous. It's just fun to watch. Like, I've watched him, and I don't believe anything he says, but he's really fun to watch. I
mean, I watch him like I watch Comedy Central and like regular comedy. But I hope that this is the case with most people, Joe. I mean, it scares me when I start to see people going after the Pizzagate, that place I forgot the name of the place, but that actual pizza shop, getting arrested, going down with a gunpoint, trying to figure out the Pizzagate crime. It seems that people take the shit a little too seriously. Like, it's a little scary, right? I mean, when you have the president of the United States, which is a much more figure of authority, echoing some of the things Alex Jones says, and there becomes that dangerous gray area of what's actually true versus what's just funny to watch. It becomes even more scary because that's just like, I mean, this is the nation, this is the world, this is the leader of the free world. I don't know, man. It's but I tell you, I gotta tell you something. I'd love to talk to you about the whole admitting that you're wrong in a debate versus not doing that, because I have 2 points of view that are in a different topic, and maybe the statement for that debate would be, or the topic would be, in a debate, the person should admit they're wrong if they're wrong, or not. So if you're free for that, we can maybe do that some other time.
Yeah, I'm always down for that.
All right, sweet. And by the way, I have I guess it's bad news, but it's not necessarily final news. It's a 2-2 on your debate with Terrence. Just the fourth judgment came in. So we're gonna look for the tiebreaker with the fifth guy or girl. We're gonna come and decide on it. So stay tuned for that. And thanks for the debate, man. I'm sorry I have to cut this a bit short, but I do have a call. It was great talking to you. And
talking to you.
I hope to do this again soon. Take care.
All right, you too.